ready whenever you are.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Lockup Shutdown podcast. My name is Monica. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Zach. How's it going tonight?
Going pretty good. It's sad that another week of the NFL is done and we're 1 week closer to the end, but I guess we're 1 week closer to the playoffs as well, so can't complain about that. But after having football almost every single day for the last couple weeks, it feels like, from Monday and Tuesday night games straight to Thursday night and Saturday games, now we're taking a little bit of a break with no Thursday night football this week and everyone playing on Sunday or Monday, so it'd be nice to get a couple of days of rest after watching the NFL game almost every night for the past couple weeks.
Absolutely. It'll be certainly nice to stop watching boring football games and get into the actual nitty-gritty of things. Today, we'll deep dive into two big stories behind the Lions' Week 15 upset of the Cardinals, discuss some questionable play calls costing different teams games, and decide the most important position in an NFL franchise. But first, as always, it's our biggest surprise from the weeks, plural, behind. Zach, I think we'll probably agree on just what surprised us the most from the last 2 weeks, but why don't you get us rolling as always?
Yeah, I think from the 2 weeks combined, my biggest surprise is that the Houston Texans are 2-0. I think last time we recorded an episode, the Texans were 2-11 and had just been eliminated from the playoffs, and now they come out and they did beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, which isn't much of an accomplishment, but to come out and then do what they did week 16 and beat the Chargers pretty handily was definitely the biggest shock for me.
That certainly is a big shock, and I'm surprised that we didn't agree on this one, but we'll be talking about these two teams more later on in the episode, but it has to be the formerly one-seeded Cardinals suffering a devastating 30-12 blowout loss to the Lions. I tried to combine suffering and devastating there. Kliff Kingsbury's play calling was absolutely atrocious the entire game, and the same can be said about their performance this week as well against the Indianapolis Colts. He threw the ball on 4th and goal from the 2 when the game was still in reach, as opposed to taking a field goal, taking your necessary points. You only have Matt Prater back there kicking the football. He's one of the greatest kickers of all time. And, instead of maybe running the ball with Kyler Murray, James Conner, he decided to go for it on 4th and goal from the 2 and throw the ball, which we all know doesn't exactly go well, circa Pete Carroll.
Yeah, there's been a few questionable play calls in the dying weeks of the season, but that's almost what makes the weeks 15, 16, 17, and now 18 so much fun, is that some teams are balls to the wall and gonna go all out with everything they have, and then every other team is like the Texans, where they're like, well, what do we have to lose? Let's do whatever we gotta do to try and win the game. And I think one prime example of that was in the Bills and Patriots game. They had a combined 10 attempts on fourth down. They went for it 10 times between the two of them in one game, with the Patriots 5 for 6 on 4th down and Bills 3 for 4 on 4th down. So yeah, Kliff Kingsbury may not have made the smartest decision, but that's what happens when you get near the end of the season. Everyone feels the pressure and either folds or turns into a diamond under the pressure.
Well, there's certainly one coach in the league who most definitely goes balls to the wall, not just in these last couple of weeks, but every week in general, and that's the Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. Do we think John Harbaugh is wrong for taking high risks despite playing with a backup quarterback?
I think that he's wrong in taking those big risks. Against the Bengals, it didn't really matter at all because they got crushed. But in the 3 weeks prior to that, you got the Steelers where you go for it and don't get it, lose by 1. You got the Ravens or the Browns game where you lose by 2. And then again against the Packers, you get a touchdown, go for 2, don't get it. And now you're 0-3 and the first team in history of the NFL to lose 3 straight games by a combined 4 or less points.
My goodness. Personally, I think John Harbaugh is completely right in his decisions to keep taking high risks. John Harbaugh has a lot of faith in his quarterback group and their ability to make big plays in the clutch, and that's been shown with the multiple 2-point conversion attempts for the win when he's starting Tyler Huntley over Lamar Jackson being injured, obviously. While it might be much to put that kind of expectation on Tyler Huntley, I mean, these are professional athletes we're talking about here, unless we're talking about the completely decimated Ravens defense, but Huntley has been learning under one of the best professional athletes in the world in Lamar Jackson, and I think he has the capability of making those plays in the clutch. It just came down to him not making the plays in the clutch. I personally believe that any given coach in the league needs to stick to their philosophies, unlike what Kliff Kingsbury has been doing with these suddenly aggressive play calls. You need to stick to your philosophy, stick to what you do best. And I think John Harbaugh's aggressive play for the win play calling is a great example of just sticking to your guns and balls to the wall, I guess, when it comes to John Harbaugh.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley's definitely been about as good as you could hope for. Against the Packers, he had 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns for 4 total touchdowns, but when he had the one play to either win or lose the game, he wasn't able to get it done, and unfortunately that followed a trend for the Ravens where in the AFC North, when everyone's within 2 games of each other, to go 0-3, losing by 1 or 2 points in every game and losing 2 on the last 2-point conversions, gotta be painful for him. But I think with one play on the line, I think you just go kick the extra point and take your chances in overtime. I think Tyler Huntley already has 4 touchdowns in the day. If you kick the extra point, I think you got a better chance of winning the coin toss than you do making that 2-point conversion and stopping Aaron Rodgers. So I think just go to overtime and take your chances on the coin toss.
Well, we'll certainly see if the Ravens can bring things back together, assuming that Lamar Jackson gets himself healthy again. I know certainly that their defensive players won't be, but that's a conversation for another time. The Detroit Lions haven't had themselves a very strong season this year, but I think it's safe to say that Jared Goff has been doing okay in the midst of the horrible team surrounding him. Do we think that Jared Goff is the answer for the immediate future of the Detroit Lions?
Goff will be able to get the job done and keep them respectable for the next couple of years, but I also don't think this Detroit Lions team is gonna get any sniff of the playoffs for at least the next 5 years. So will Jared Goff keep them in games? Yes, but if you ask me, is Jared Goff gonna win them some games and be the future of the Lions? I would say no to that question.
Personally, I think that yes, Jared Goff is a good short-term building block, so for the immediate future, until they can settle other more important needs that are glaring throughout their team, then yes, I think Jared Goff is the immediate future for the Lions. Jared Goff fulfilled this role when he was Los Angeles Ram. I mean, they built the rest of their franchise around him and then traded for a much better quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and that worked out really well for them, and I imagine that's what the Lions intend to do with with Jared Goff in this situation. I mean, he's a fairly average, decent quarterback. He's capable of holding his own. This season, he's 18th in yardage and 19th in touchdowns. I think he's pretty low in interceptions as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was like 4th, 5th, something like that. I think that Jared Goff is going to be a great stepping stone for the immediate future of this franchise, at least until they draft and sign some more high-quality talent. Jared Goff is going to fulfill that role as the Lions quarterback, and until they can make some similar trade to how the Rams did with, well, again, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, I think that the Lions will build around Jared Goff and eventually make a better upgrade at that position and chase after a ring, potentially.
Yeah, I think he's definitely just gonna keep him steady, like I said earlier, but I think they're gonna try and build more around their young running back core of DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Jamar Jefferson, and those guys, along with Amon-Ra St. Brown that we've seen go crazy the last couple weeks. So I think he'll keep him steady, but with the other quarterbacks they've got in the division and Bears having Justin Fields, I think the Jared Goff is not going to ever win a division title with the Lions, and I don't think Jared Goff's ever going to start a playoff game for the Lions. That'll be my take.
Very interesting take. There's a lot of different positions the Lions need to fill before they get to that point, and there's just a lot of different positions in any given organization in general, but only one of them can be the most important of all the different positions. Zach, what do you think is the most important position in an NFL organization?
I think the most important position is gotta be the head coach of any given organization. We've seen some coaches come in and be awesome and lead teams to a maybe not a Super Bowl title, but definitely some division titles recently. And then we've also gone and seen what someone like Urban Meyer can do to a franchise. And as soon as you think the Jags can't get any worse than what they were before Urban Meyer, they are now worse than anything we thought they were pre-Urban Meyer, and he's definitely set them back a few steps, as well as Matt Nagy with the Chicago Bears. As soon as you think you draft a good quarterback in Justin Fields, if you can't get the right plays going for him and anything else, now we got people saying Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. So I think the head coach of any given franchise and organization is gonna be the most important and set you up either for success or failure.
I'm going to actually have to disagree with you on this one. We said before that the head coaching position is probably the most unstable position out of any of them in an organization, but personally, my most important position of any given organization might actually go to whoever is on the field as a starting quarterback. Now, on the field, the starting quarterback is touching the ball every offensive play, every game, needs to know the entire playbook, the entire other team's playbook. The quarterback has to be athletically gifted, perform at the highest level every single week, or the entire team basically suffers as a result of that, and we've seen that with bad quarterbacks or potentially really good quarterbacks like Tom Brady completely changing the course of a franchise. The quarterback fulfills various roles in how a team rebuilds itself, between being a building block or stepping stone, kind of how I imagine Jared Goff is going to be, or simply being the missing link that turns a franchise into a successful one, similar to how we've seen with Matthew Stafford going into LA. A starting quarterback has an essential role in the rebuild of a franchise, and off the field, the quarterback is the face of the franchise. The quarterback is your biggest representative, your biggest spokesperson. It is the person on the front of your franchise, almost. Your starting quarterback might as well be your logo. A great quarterback is raking in the money. I mean, Tom Brady would sell the most jerseys for any given team, any given day of the week. And I don't think that any franchise is complete without that money, and no franchise is complete without a good quarterback.
See, the reason why I think we said the head coach has the most changeover in any given organization is because a GM realizes how important a head coach is to their organization that they're trying to run. And if you give me 53 average players and then give me the worst head coach in the league, or give me 52 average players and the worst quarterback in the league with an average coach, I think those 53 average players with the worst head coach in the league is gonna do a lot worse than that average team with the worst quarterback in the league, if that makes any sense to you.
I think there's definitely different arguments to both sides of the equation. I was kind of surprised you didn't go for a GM in this argument. I mean, the GM itself is a very important part of an organization. You could definitely see a bad GM certainly hold back a franchise such as John Elway with the Broncos or something. But the GM also isn't quite as important as it is in, say, baseball, where a bad GM can just completely screw your franchise for decades upon decades upon decades, a la the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, the GM is an important piece, and I think you could probably list off 5 or 6, 7 different key pieces in every single organization, but I think that the one key piece has got to be the head coach, which is almost serving as the gap between the GM off the field and the quarterback on the field. I think that coach is that middle ground that has to appease both sides, and that is why I think having the best head coach in the league is gonna make a huge difference to any given team.
Well, the head coach, quarterback, GM, whatever you think the most important position in a general organization might be, it could just be that the most important position to the Arizona Cardinals right now was their starting wide receiver named DeAndre Hopkins, who is currently on injured reserve due to some injuries and isn't really expected to be ready to play until about the NFC Championship, assuming they can get there. Just how important was DeAndre Hopkins to the success of this Cardinals team, Zach?
DeAndre Hopkins was hugely important to the Cardinals, but I don't think he's the difference maker for this Arizona Cardinals team. I think one of the reasons for their recent struggles, losing to both the Lions and the Colts the last 2 weeks, has just been that Kyler Murray isn't the same from when he came back from his injury, and I'm sure DeAndre Hopkins is a factor in that, but I think Kyler Murray himself just hasn't been the same, throwing 3 interceptions the last 3 games and unable to get more than 1 touchdown in any given game since he had 2 against the Bears in week 13. So recent struggles for Kyler Murray has got to be the reason for the struggles more than DeAndre Hopkins himself.
I think I have to disagree. I know I said that a quarterback can certainly be the fall or rise of a given franchise in the last segment, but I feel like Kyler Murray is still playing at his best level, but clearly the team around him seems to be the one collapsing, and I think that is part, in fact, that DeAndre Hopkins just simply isn't present. And especially with the current Kliff Kingsbury play calling, I think DeAndre Hopkins was absolutely vital. AJ Green, as you had predicted earlier in the season, is absolutely terrible. He looks completely lost on the field day in and day out. In the words of Russell Westbrook, he's just out there running around and doing a whole lot of nothing. His routes are run horribly if he even runs the right route. He refuses to attack the ball, and I've started to question if it was just Andy Dalton that made him look incredible or if he's just really washed up. Kliff Kingsbury just completely refuses to draw up plays for Christian Kirk or his extremely talented second-round rookie wide receiver in Rondale Moore, who has completely hardly seen the field this year. We saw Christian Kirk get a little more involved in the game against the Colts, but we've still not seen enough of Rondale Moore, who is a very, very talented wide receiver who could absolutely go out there and make the plays and fill in that DeAndre Hopkins role if he has to. Kingsbury completely refuses to set up the run game until it's too late, and with two talented running backs and an extremely fast quarterback in Kyler Murray being completely unused, Kliff Kingsbury's play calling has looked absolutely atrocious these last couple of games, and I know we've said more about that earlier in the episode. I think that the Cardinals are in a rude awakening in the playoffs if they can't continue their success in these next 2 weeks without DeAndre Hopkins. I think that, yes, I said that the Cardinals are going to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, but it is very, very possible, in my opinion, that unless Kliff Kingsbury changes something up, the Arizona Cardinals probably won't see it past the first round.
Yeah, the Cardinals have got some serious issues going on now that it's 3 in a row for them that they've lost, and I don't think it's getting much easier for them against the Cowboys defense this next week. But one of the other names I think you forgot to mention that Kliff Kingsbury's fallen in love with is got to be Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz got over 10 targets a game the last 3 games, so between the lack of chances for Chase Edmonds or James Conner and then the lack of targets for Christian Kirk when they do actually throw the ball has got to be disappointing. And I know with the 31-year-old Zach Ertz, if Zach Ertz is your number one target, you're probably not going to be winning too many games in this day and age in the NFL, and I think that's proving why as the Cardinals have lost 3 straight.
Absolutely. It certainly didn't help for the Eagles last year when they were main targeting at Zach Ertz, so we'll just have to see what happens with the Cardinals, and I'm hoping that Kliff Kingsbury can figure things out and make me correct about my prediction from week 1, mind you. But it's time to move on to our last topic before we wrap things up with lightning fast picks. Today I wanted to talk about the recent struggles of Baker Mayfield. Do we think that Baker Mayfield, pardon the voice crack, is the face of the franchise for the Browns? Or will he just go down as yet another letdown for the city of Cleveland, who has already been through so much apart from the time they had LeBron?
I don't think he's gonna put his name on the extension of that jersey we've seen floating around the internet, which has about 15, 16 quarterback names crossed off of it that have all been duds for the Browns. I think he's earned enough respect to not be on that shirt, but I don't think he's gonna create a lasting memory in Browns fans' minds. I think he's almost what Jared Goff is, where he's gonna fill in time and let them win a few games, but Baker Mayfield is not gonna win a playoff game with the Cleveland Browns from here on out. I think his time with the Browns is not gonna end how he wants it to end, and unfortunately he'll be out of Cleveland before he wants to be.
You know, I'm very surprised at what you've said because I've completely agreed with it, and I know I said I was going to have a very wild take before the show, but I definitely think I 100% agree with you. Everything I have written down with you completely adds on to what you said. I think that both Baker and the Browns franchise seem to be completely suffering from each other. The Browns have a lot of great pieces in place, but Baker can't seem to get things done. And on the other hand, Baker is a very, very talented quarterback, and it's not exactly every day you see him throw 4 interceptions as he had done on Christmas Day, especially the one to ultimately seal the fate of the Browns in that game against the Packers, I believe. I think it would be mutually beneficial for Baker and the Browns if we saw a trade on the level of the Stafford Goff swap from before the season that we've talked about earlier in the episode. So I agree with you. Baker is filling in an almost Jared Goff type role with the Browns. I think it would be very realistic for the Browns to seek out a disgruntled quarterback from another franchise, such as maybe Russell Wilson or even Deshaun Watson, and I could totally see them giving Deshaun Watson another chance because of the second chance they gave to Kareem Hunt as well. And I think they could chase a championship maybe even next season if this trade ends up happening in the offseason. But on the other hand, the team that's receiving Baker would get almost a face of the franchise level talent to quickly build a team around, and I think we're going to see him be used as a building block, as a stepping stone. Baker's 100% going to go down as the best quarterback the Browns have had in the last 3 decades, but I think that's just a bit depressing, just considering how much he's been letting down the fans and with the inconsistent results lately. And ultimately, I think that Baker's not going to be the next name to add on to that jersey that goes around, but Baker Mayfield certainly won't be remembered for what he's done for the Browns. I think he might be remembered for what he does for another franchise.
Yeah, I think it would be, like you said, mutually beneficial for both the Browns and Baker Mayfield to part ways. I know we talked earlier in the season about whether Odell Beckham was the key issue for the Browns, and obviously they've gotten rid of OBJ, and not much has changed for the Browns, if at all, since his departure. So I think he wasn't the key issue for the Browns, and I think it's just a organizational issue. But what I will say is, sure, the Browns are close to the playoffs right now, but going based off expectations entering week 1 to where teams currently are now, I think the Browns have got to be the most disappointing team in the entire NFL, falling so short of what their expectations actually were. And yeah, I'm not saying they're the worst team in the league, but they've been so short, underperformed from those week 1 expectations, that I think they're the most disappointing team out of any league, out of any team in the NFL right now.
I have to agree with you on that one as well. I had said earlier in the season that the Browns were going to be the kings of the AFC North. Obviously, I had foreseen the collapse of the Ravens, considering the amount of injuries we had back then, let alone the amount of injuries we have now, with basically barely fielding a 22-man team. But yeah, it was certainly very disappointing to see how the Browns have carried out this season, and we'll just have to see if they can turn things around before the end of the season, maybe get into a playoff game. But I think it's time for both Baker and the Browns to kind of walk away from each other, have a bit of a breakup, a mutually agreed on, mutually beneficial kind of a breakup, so to speak. Let's move on and wrap things up, though. Christmas time is just behind us, and although all of our presents are unwrapped, I think it's time to wrap this episode up in with a nice little bow that we're gonna call Lightning Fast Picks. Starting off, there's no Thursday night football, there's no Saturday night football, it's just Sunday, January 2nd. It's the Atlanta Falcons and the Buffalo Bills to start us off. Zach, why don't you get us started?
Feeling crazy and starting 2022 as well with these predictions, which seems a little bit crazy, but back to the topic, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills, have another strong outing and beat the Falcons.
Absolutely. The Falcons are not a very strong team at all, and I think it's definitely got to go to the Bills on this one. Next up, we've got the Giants and the Chicago Bears. Let's see if we can finish this before my headphone batteries run out. I think this one's got to be the Chicago Bears. They're just too talented of a team, and the Giants are way too dysfunctional right now for anything to go right for them.
Yeah, the Giants. I don't even know who they're starting, Jake Fromm or Jake from State Farm at quarterback, but I'll take the Chicago Bears to beat them.
Next up, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals with playoff implications on the line. Who do you got, Zach?
This is going to be a huge one, and I'm actually going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals on this one. I was impressed with what Joe Burrow did last week, albeit against the tore apart Ravens defense, but I think the Bengals will stop the Chiefs' winning streak this week.
It'll certainly be a very interesting game, and that is a surprisingly interesting take there, but I think I'm going to have to go for the Chiefs on this one. I doubt a Bengals upset is going to happen anytime soon, but we'll just have to see. Next up, it's another game with heavy playoff implications for both sides of the ball. It's the Miami Dolphins and the Tennessee Titans.
Dolphins have won 7 in a row, which is crazy considering everything else they've had going this season, but I'm still gonna take the Derrick Henry-less Titans over the Dolphins.
I might have to disagree with you on this one. I think that Miami's going to continue on their hot streak in this one, and with that very strong defense against a depleted offense, obviously without Derrick Henry, I think that the Miami Dolphins might have themselves yet another upset on this one. Give me the Miami Dolphins in this game. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to start us off on this one, and I'm going to say the Colts. They're just way too strong of a team right now. They're living on a hot streak, and I think that's going to continue, and they're going to steamroll straight through the Raiders on this one.
Yeah, the Colts have been one of the best teams in the league in recent weeks, and we'll give the Raiders credit for having a winning record with everything they've been through this season, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to overcome the Indianapolis Colts this weekend.
Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots. I'm going to have to say the Patriots on this one. The Jags are just too dysfunctional right now.
Yeah, I'd take all 31 other teams in the NFL over the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, and I think the Patriots will beat them pretty easily.
Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Jets. I think this one's a pretty easy one as well. Definitely give me Tampa Bay and Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady's tore apart the Jets his entire career and is going to do it once again this week as a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Next up, it's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Football Team, who will soon have to address your delusions from earlier in the season about, but definitely give me the Eagles to win on this one.
Slowly starting to get off of that train, and I think the Eagles will beat the Washington Football Team once again, and who knows, maybe we'll have 2 NFC East teams in the playoffs.
We just might see it. Next up, we've got the LA Rams and the Baltimore Ravens. Personally, I think this one's going to be the Rams. The Baltimore Ravens just have way too many injuries going on right now, and I don't think they're going to win a single game for the rest of the year, so definitely give me the Los Angeles Rams on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Rams on this one as well. Maybe, who knows, with how much Joe Burrow did this week, maybe Matt Stafford can go crazy and Cooper Kupp can break every wide receiver record.
Maybe, just maybe. Next up, we've got the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers. The Chargers have had a lot of struggles recently. The Broncos haven't looked too great either. Personally, I think this one's going to be a Denver Broncos upset. The Chargers are on a downward spiral, and I think that could continue to occur, so give me the Denver Broncos in this one.
Yeah, both these teams are on a downward spiral, but obviously the Chargers are missing often against the Texans.
Alright, next up, we've got the Houston Texans and the San Francisco 49ers. I think this one's pretty easy. Give me the 49ers on this one.
Yeah, this one's fairly obvious. I know Jimmy G might be out for this weekend, but I'm still going to take the Niners over the Texans.
Next up, it's a very good one. It's the Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys.
Going to take the Cowboys. I feel good about the Cardinals' struggles, and unfortunately, for me, I think the Cowboys are getting better every week, and I think they beat the Cardinals.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to have to go with the Dallas Cowboys on this one. Next up, it's the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. The Saints had a rough outing against the Miami Dolphins just a few hours ago, but personally, I'm going to have to pick the New Orleans Saints on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Saints in this one over the Panthers. A lot of unknowns to these two teams about who will be playing quarterback for both of these teams, but whoever it is, I'm going to take the Saints pretty confidently over the Panthers.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks. I personally think that we're going to see a surprise out of this one. I don't have too much confidence in the Seattle Seahawks, as I've said these last couple of weeks, and especially in Week 15, criticizing them and saying they need to definitely hit the reset switch on things, but I think that this one's definitely going to be the nail in the coffin for the Seahawks that tells them they need to. Give me the Detroit Lions on this one. You haven't heard that one all season.
Yeah, that's a surprising pick from you, but the Lions have still yet to win a road game, and I think that'll continue. The Seahawks are bad, but they're not bad enough to lose at home to the Detroit Lions.
We'll just have to see. Next up, it's Sunday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Always a classic between these two teams. But I think I'm going to have to go for the team that's basically already clinched the first seed. Give me the Green Bay Packers on this one.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers seem to be maybe the best team in NFL right now, and Aaron Rodgers, for all the noise we had in preseason, and then after week 1, he seems to quieted all that down, and now he's leading Devontae Adams and himself to another NFC championship, and he'll beat the Vikings.
Absolutely. Last up, it's Monday Night Football between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Always a good one when it's an AFC North matchup. However, we've criticized the Browns earlier in this episode, and I certainly think that's going to culminate into this one. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers to my dismay.
Yeah, there's not much better than AFC North primetime game, and that's exactly what we got. Gonna have to agree with you on this one. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field are gonna be too much for the Browns to handle this week.
And that is all we have time for today. That was a pretty good episode today, Zach, if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, good to get back in after missing last week, and all of a sudden we're talking about week 17 and what's going to happen in 2022, which is just a couple of days from now. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone, and we'll see what happens in 2022.
Crazy to think all this started with a couple of burritos at a local restaurant in, what was that, August, September, something like that. It was a long time ago at this point, and it's surprising we've gotten this far, and I'm hoping for a lot more from here, but until then, it's time for us to lock up and shut down.